This week in Alaska history, William Seward arrives in Alaska for the first time. His trip comes 2 years after negotiating its purchase from Russia.
The year 1869, and as author Laurel Downing Bill tells us during this week's Story Time with Aunt Phil, the former Secretary of State was awfully impressed with some of Alaska's native people and their art.
That art is similar to what you'll find on display here at the Wells Fargo Alaska Heritage Museum on Northern Lights.
And while this history lesson begins here in Anchorage, the story really begins in Sitka, right, Laurel?
Former Secretary of State William Seward arrived in Sitka in 1869. Now, he wanted to see the land that he had fought so hard to obtain for America. So U.S. General Davis organized a lot of events to celebrate Seward arriving, and then Seward went along the Lynn Canal and to the village of Klukwan, where he was really impressed with the native art and the native people. In fact, he gave the chief of Klukwan a beautiful blanket that had emblems of the United States woven into it. And historians say that the chief thought that was like one of the most wonderful things that he had ever gotten in his life and cherished it until his death.
Now, events were held in his honor. He even received a new title.
Yeah, the villagers named him the Great Tyee, which means chief, and Seward was very pleased to have that and thought it was awesome.
So certainly a successful trip, but what a lot of people may not realize is Alaska pretty lucky to be a part of the United States. And we say that because Seward almost didn't live long enough to put his faith in that $7.2 million purchase.
During the Civil War, in fact, it was the day that Lincoln was murdered, there was a plan afoot by the Confederates to murder also the Vice President Andrew Johnson, as well as Secretary of State Seward. They thought that would throw the Union into chaos because the Secretary was the only one that could actually organize a new election. So that night, 14th of April, 1865, when Booth was off to Ford Theater to murder Lincoln, a man went by the name of Lewis Payne snuck into Secretary of Seward's house, and he raced up the stairs to Seward's bedroom, pulled out his revolver, it jammed, he grabbed his Bowie knife, jumped on top of Seward, and stabbed him multiple times in the head. Well, Seward was saved because I think he had a carriage accident the day before, and he was wearing a skin and iron neck brace, which saved his life. But he was horribly maimed in the knife attack, which is why I think you only see him in profile shot after a certain period of time.
Wow. So if you think about it, if it wasn't for that neck brace, Alaska's history could have looked a lot different.
Yeah, we might still be speaking Russian up here because negotiations might have ceased and the Russians might have just stayed put. And now, of course, that means we might not be telling these Alaska history stories, but had other stories to share instead.
Wasn't that a good one?
Yeah, who knew?
I had no idea. We've all heard of, obviously we all know about the assassination of Lincoln, but that Seward was involved. I don't know. I don't know if I wasn't paying attention in history class or what.
I never heard that.
Maybe you just pay better attention because Laurel is telling the story.
Yeah.
Fantastic job by her and by our editor, Rick Rice. So well done all around.